Chapter 14. It was his last year at the university. As he learned how to open his heart to new things, his juniors had become classmates and friends who he hung out with after the class, either in a food shop or in a sports game before he went home. As he was occupied with the classes and many activities with friends, the feeling that he was alone in the world became less and less. His life became more positive, with a long path ahead of him. During the summer break, he even flew to the US to check some universities to continue his master's degree. Sometimes the life on the hill came back to his mind, but it wasn't as strong as before, as if the wound in his heart was finally healed. As for the matter of the heart, he then shut himself down and went out on dates with some girls, but didn't bother keeping in touch with neither of them. Then came the day when he received a card that gave him a wake up call. That even if time had faded a face in his memory, but no one had ever taken that someone's place. Tian looked at the light brown envelope in his hand that he received after coming home from school. The sender name even surprised him more. Captain Wasant Sutikul, MD. It was Vidok Nam. He ripped the envelope open in a hurry and almost tore the card inside. A hard paper with large gold letters. You're invited to attend our wedding. A wedding. The young man read the bride's name, a pediatrician in Bangkok, and read the date and location to memorize them. The organ in his left chest was thundering as he thought this might be the chance to see someone who'd been on his mind all this time. On Friday night, the youngest son of the Sofadisako family headed back home at a high speed. After he got out of the car, he rushed in to give a peck on his mom's cheek and ran up the stairs towards his room. Lady Lidita was bewildered for a millisecond, and she recalled that he was going to a wedding of a senior friend. She told the maids to bring him the suits that had been laundered to choose. Ken shot out of the bathroom and saw his mom laying out a black-gray Armani suit and other luxurious names on the bed. I think this one is nice and proper. You said he's an officer? There must be many high-ranking officers at the wedding. Whatever fits, Mom. Ken had no comment on the suits as he was drying his hair. You haven't told me how you got to know the groom. She didn't get a clear answer from him the first time she asked, as if he wanted to hide something. The almond eyes glanced at his mom in the mirror, weighing his options. Finally, he decided to give her more details. He's a field doctor at the operating base near the village I lived. That's how we became friends. He must have been a good friend to you. It's been a year and he still remembered to send you this card. It helped me a lot. Tian didn't elaborate on what. I didn't imagine that he'd still think of me since it's been ages. The doctor even took the trouble to look for his home address. The mother didn't pry further. She picked a cream-colored shirt for the suits and folded a maroon handkerchief into a triangle shape to slide under the chest pocket. Looking at the lean, tall young man, who looked impeccable in his attire, pride swelled in his heart. I'll be going now, Mom. I don't want to get stuck in traffic. He took his mom into a loose embrace to thank her for her help. Then he hurried down to the car that had been polished spotless. Commuting in the evening of Bangkok took longer than he'd imagined. He was stuck in intersections for nearly an hour, and once he looked at the watch, he got even more pissed that the reception had already started. As soon as the traffic lights turned green, he stomped on the accelerator with his high-end Kamoy suede shoe. The reception was held at a hotel in Pranakorn district, near the Grand Palace in the middle of the old town. Hence, the decor was a bit vintage, which he thought was awesome. He parked the car in front of the hotel. As he walked through the lobby, he saw the ladies in silk gowns, chatting among themselves, and their diamond sets were sparkling in the light they could blind. The classical tune could be heard from the ballroom in the far end. The wedding arch at the entrance was decorated with white and blue flowers, creating a dome on the top. The bride and the groom, who were both medical doctors, were dressed in simple yet elegant gowns befitting their status. The lean form in a gray suit stood still among the other guests. The young man's hair was combed up to reveal his handsome face, and he looked like he just walked out of a fashion magazine. So attractive, people had to stop and look. Dr. Wazant looked up, was taken aback, and a grin split across his face. He excused himself from the senior guests, not caring if he'd offended them or not. The scene where the groom lurched towards and took the younger man into a big hug made everyone stop and look. Was that a third wheel in their relationship? A photographer, who reacted first, pressed repeatedly on the shutter in case this could turn into juicy gossip. Bro, I didn't think you'd come. Hey, Doc Nam, let me go. People are looking. Ken grimaced as if he had swallowed a bitter pill as all eyes were on them. The military doctor chuckled and released the younger man. He raked his eyes on Yen from head to toe. You look even more handsome than the last time we saw each other. My friend's got a good eye. He teased. Even if it was a good humored statement, Yen was overwhelmed. His light brown eyes shook. His thin lips pressed tight as if he was holding back his emotions. Bozant saw the sudden change in the younger man's demeanor and let out a long sigh. You came here today because you wanted to see him, didn't you? Even if the younger man didn't say a word, the doctor knew what the answer was. He slowly shook his head. He came to my engagement ceremony when we did the water blessing at noon. He just left for Chiang Rai this afternoon. Tian closed his eyes, feeling as if he'd turned into a stone, not knowing what to do when the other man acted as if he forgot about everything that had happened between them. Was it because I knew I was coming tonight? His voice was a croaked whisper. Wasant was taken aback. He grabbed the former volunteer teacher's shoulder and made an excuse for his friend. If he knew you were still thinking of him, he'd be over the moon. The younger man took in a deep breath before forcing a smile at the doctor who was trying his best to cheer him up. He'd be happy, but not enough to want to see me. You don't have to make an excuse for him. It sucks. The doctor scratched his neck at the retort. Then his wife to be jumped in for the rescue. Is there something wrong? Nothing. We're just talking. Tian answered because the bride was eyeing them as to why they were having a long chat. Now, excuse me, I'll go inside. Congratulations to both of you. Wait, Yen, can I have your phone number? Dr. Wasan called after the younger man and took a piece of paper and a pen at the reception desk at the entrance. Tian gave his numbers without a second thought. There was no signal on the hills anyway, so he didn't have to be worried about someone reaching out to him. The groom then was dragged away by his bride to welcome the incoming guests at the flower arch as the former volunteer teacher was grinning, watching how the cunning doctor got tamed by his wife. 8 o'clock in the evening was the hour the bride and the groom would carry out their ceremony in the hall. Elegant cadets in white uniforms marched in and lined up in the middle, pulling their swords from the waists in unison to create a holy arch. The spotlight swept down at the couples who were walking side by side under the arch, looking just like a dream. Ken held his glass of orange juice as his breath caught. He had never seen Captain Pupa in his formal uniform. What he saw was the man in his field gears or the greenish khaki t-shirt, with a scowl as if he constantly had constipation. He pictured the man in his mind, how he would look like in this spotless uniform. He was tall with broad shoulders and long legs, Must have looked so good and a real head turner for girls. Unfortunately, he didn't like women. Tian snorted, but the smile was short-lived as his lips stretched into a thin line. The more he thought about the man, the memories rushed back in and were as clear as crystal, as if they just happened yesterday. He shifted, feeling uncomfortable, and raised the glass to salute the couple as the spokesperson announced, before drinking the juice in one go. He put the empty glass on the counter and pushed through the crowd to leave. He didn't go for his car, but chose to amble aimlessly along the footpath in front of the hotel. A large fortress that had once protected the capital city could be found in Santi Chaiprakan Park. The formidable ruin still commanded awe, with the lights that were directed at it, and pulled an absent-minded man towards it. Some locals and tourists were staring at the lean man who was pulling down his tie, carrying an expensive suit in one hand. He looked strange and listless, crestfallen as he walked towards the Chao Phraya River at the back of the park. They were hoping he wouldn't jump and kill himself. Tian slumped down on a long bench facing the main river at the heart of Bangkok, mentally and emotionally depleted. The cool breeze from the water touched his face, giving him a little refreshment. He inhaled, taking in the fresh air, and let his eyes wander to Rama the Eighth Bridge on the right-hand side, not too far away. His hand dropped to his side, touching a hard paper. It must have been a leaflet that promoted tourist attractions around Bangkok that someone had left behind. Kian picked it up and looked absent-mindedly until his eyes caught a collage photo. Two demons that were influenced by Ramakien stood guard at the entrance of Wat Arun Vihara. Ramakien is the Thai version of the Sanskrit epic Ramayana. Wat Arun is the temple of dawn, and Vihara means image hall. It reminded him about someone who he often teased for resembling such a demon with a tall, imposing figure and a deep scowl on his face. The wall that he had built up to fool other people that he was strong started to crumble. He crushed the paper, dropped it to the ground, and lifted his hands to cover his face. His shoulders were shaking from the pain of the wound he thought had closed itself up, but in fact it was splitting open once again. You know, I have to go away, far away, for many years, Tian whispered to the wind, hoping it might carry his words to the cruel man who lived so far away and out of reach. Only if you told me you still miss me, it might be possible for our parallel paths to have come closer. The final exam of the last academic year came to an end. His classmates were excited that they were registering for graduation and to attend the ceremony in the next few months. For Tian, he had something else to do. The American university he had applied to with his English course had sent an acceptance letter with a condition that he had to take a semester of the English preparation class before starting his master's degree. The young man was picking up his clothes that he'd be taking with him on the journey, and his mom was helping him with sorting them out. She handed them to the maid who was folding the clothes to put in the luggage. You should take a thicker sweater with you, my dear. It's summer now, Mom. It will make the luggage too heavy. I'll buy one when I get there. He was a man and preferred to travel light. Let's take one or two. It's going to be autumn soon, and you will have one at hand when you need it. Tian shrugged, letting his mom have her way. The phone suddenly rang up. The screen showed Dr. Nam's name, who came to Bangkok once in a while and took the chance to call him. Once he asked about the formidable captain, the doctor dodged the conversation with vague answers like, "He's fine, don't worry." The young man looked at his mom, who was busy with his luggage, and left the room to talk in private. So Lady Lalita took his place in taking the clothes out of the closet. Her eyes landed on a backpack that was pushed at the far end. She saw a shirt with peculiar embroidery at the hem, peeking out from the bag, so she took the liberty to open it. What she found was a Hill Tribe hand-woven shirt and a few more as she pulled the first one out. She couldn't believe her eyes that her high-end son would wear this type of costume. As she took them out, she spotted a pastel-colored diary at the bottom of the backpack. She had a suspicion that he might have met some sweet girls up there, so she pulled the diary to quench her curiosity. The cover was decorated with papier-mâché letters saying "A Tale of a Thousand Stars". It obviously belonged to a girl. Flipping the first page, her heart nearly stopped. The name Miss Thorfinn Sharon Paul that appeared on the page was unforgettable. 2 years ago, her husband and she reached out to the girl's family to repay her with money to show their gratitude. She was the one who truly owned that heart. Lady Lolita learned from what she had people investigate that Thorfinn had been a volunteer teacher on one of the northernmost hills, and her son ran away to become one as well. She once thought it was a coincidence, an incredible happenstance, but the evidence in her hand made her realize that she had been all wrong. Everything happens for a reason. The mother wanted to call her son in and made him explain everything, but her subconscious feared that if she made him upset, he might run away again, back to the hill, to that perilous borderland. How could she bear, as a mother, if one day she'd get a phone call telling her that he was injured and hospitalized like that day? The plump lady dropped on the soft mattress, feeling resigned. She was getting older each day. Her eldest son was a high-ranking officer with a bright future in England. His wife was very pregnant and they were expecting a child. Her middle child daughter was able to take care of herself despite her divorces. The one she was worried about the most was her youngest son. He was 10 years apart from the first two children, and that was why she had been pampering him. It was also his critical myocarditis that made her worried tenfold, despite his miraculous survival. Yet, the way he was running away from home made her realize that parents were the ones who gave life, but it was the child's right to write his own destiny. Still, she wanted to see her son walk down the path she thought was right and good for him. Her chubby hand closed the diary, knowing there was no need to bring up the past. Let bygone be bygone, and she would not speak of it again. As she was putting the diary in the backpack, a photo fell out. It was a silhouette of a man. It was dark, but she could still tell from the uniform that he belonged to a border patrol unit. The immaculate eyebrows frowned. Perhaps he was Sorfan's lover, since she was carrying his picture in her diary. But the more she thought, the more curious she got. Did her son meet this man on the hill? Tian was talking on the phone to his friend who lived far away on the balcony on the second floor. He told the doctor his travel itinerary as he was leaving to further his study in another country, hoping Wazant would relay the message to that someone. But as he asked how the captain was doing, what he got was a chuckle and the same answer. He's fine. Don't worry about him. He's trying in his own way. What was that supposed to mean? As he hung up and got back inside, he ran into his father. Where's mom? The former general asked. His wife said she was going to help their son boy, but the boy was here. Tian pointed his thumb over his shoulder. In my room. She's packing for me. She's more thrilled than the one who's traveling. She's just happy that her youngling got into a prestigious university. She will be bragging about it at the next charity reception. General Theory chuckled with good humor, but his son was frowning. You two look way happy, as if you don't want me here. The father was quiet for a brief moment, then he said, You have a minute? Let's talk in my office. Ken cocked an eyebrow in surprise. He had a heart-to-heart talk with his father once after he had come down the mountains, which made him realize how much his father loved him. Even if the man didn't openly shower affection on him because he was a soldier and more familiar with issuing commands, his dad turned out to be the one who understood and respected his decision the most. The younger man nodded and followed his father to the office at the end of the right wing. He sat down in a chair on the other side of the wooden desk and watched how the former general bent down to unlock a shelf. General Thirayut soon came up again with a big pile of envelopes. "What's this, Dad?" He picked a few envelopes to open and went still. "They're from Seng Tong Foundation. Your mother doesn't want you to think about that place ever again. So she told the maids to throw these letters away. If I saw one, I took it back. But they might not be everything they've sent." Tian stared at the letters where his little pupils had drawn pictures to him with messages like, "We miss you, PC Tian," and "When are you coming back to us?" What touched him the most was the letter from Ivy, the Akha boy who still drew the same picture with a happy family holding hands. But this time, the figure that was in the picture wasn't Thorfod. It was him. Seeing how his youngest son was looking at the letters as if they were precious, General Theriot's face softened. "Don't be upset with Mom. You know she only wants the best for you." "We haven't forgotten about me till now." The eyes that looked at his father were red. "But even if there were nothing but good memories there, I'm not going back just because of these letters." The words filled with hurt made the father stop and think. Suddenly, he leaned forward, saying firmly, "Are you happy, son?" It was a short and straightforward question, but it shook his heart. The thin lips pressed tight and trembled, trying to hold back a turmoil that was pushing against the thick wall he had built up inside. "I don't want to make you and Mom sad again." "That's not the answer." "Dad, I don't know." He dropped his head on the pile of letters, plagued with confusion. "Please, don't ask me anything." Hearing the words, General Thirayut rose and walked to stand at his son's side. He put a hand on the back of the boy's head. "I don't know what's going on in your mind, but remember this. Whatever you choose to do in the future, I am here for you, always." He then stepped out of the room, leaving his son to himself in the office. Ken knew that he wasn't feverish with the desire to become a volunteer teacher at Papandal again, but with a promise he'd given to someone. He had been a fool to believe that unchanged feeling could merge their paths one day, yet that one day seemed so out of reach. The young man slowly and tiredly gathered the open letters. What a torment this is. Time flew. 1 week ago, Tian had been climbing a cliff in a gym with his classmates during the daytime, strolling through a new shopping mall in the evening, and having dinner with To. Today, he was leaving to study overseas. He picked Torfon's diary up. She was the woman who had given him a second life, and he put her book into his backpack to be a reminder of a good memory he once had. The lean form tightened a red jacket and pulled large luggage with a smaller hand-held one out of the bedroom. His parents were waiting for him in a van to drive him to the airport. The servants lifted the luggage into the back of the car and closed the door. As the car headed away from the mansion, Ken lowered his head, saying nothing. Longing and sadness welled up in his chest, which felt like it was bursting. "It's all right, honey. Once you're there, you'll be having a good time. You won't even miss home." Lady Lalita caressed his arm, seeing how dejected he looked. Thin lips lifted into a dry smile, but he remained quiet until they reached the destination. The airport was already busy in the late morning with tourists and travelers from all over the world. The European van parked right at the departure gate, and the driver rushed to carry the baggage as his employers and their son stepped out of the vehicle. Tian pushed the trolley with his luggage towards the check-in special lane for business and first-class passengers. After getting the seats assigned, he walked back with a backpack and a small carry-on with wheels to where his parents were waiting. He also saw two other men who had been like family. "Hello, Uncle Pitan," Sofadiscal's youngest son, while the former right-hand man of his father answered to the other. "Hey, Pitay, surprised to see you here." "I'm here to see you off. I traded my shift specially for this." "You didn't have to bother." He even told Tul and his classmates that they didn't have to come to the airport. "I had to. You will be away for years. My ears will be lonely that no one will be calling me to whine about the study." The man who recently became a doctor smiled, thinking about how the younger man liked to call him late at night and moaned about the exams. "The calls are cheap in America. You think you'll get away from this?" "Whatever you want, you spoiled kid. I'm on 24/7, standby just for you." Finishing his sentence, he remembered that he had prepared a special gift for his brother from another mother and pulled out a picture frame. "I'm sorry it took 2 years. My phone was dead and I lost all the pics. Then I remembered that I uploaded them to an external flash drive." Tian took the gift, bewildered, but as he looked at the picture, tears welled up in his eyes. It wasn't just a picture frame, but a digital one with changing images uploaded into the frame. The picture on the screen was when he had been leaving, and the villagers and the children came to say goodbye. Love and friendship, held inside that little rectangular frame, were still palpable after all this time. The almond eyes searched for a figure among many on the screen but found nothing. Teichin smiled lightly, tapping the thin shoulder. "Let it remind you of better days when you feel down." Seeing the way her son was clutching the frame to his chest, the frame with the pictures from his days at the village uphill, Lady Lalita gave a warning. "You'd better hurry up. It's almost boarding time, my dear." Tian took in a deep breath and wiped the snot from his nose. He walked with his family to the initial security checkpoint. "Here we are. I'll be going now. I'll call you as soon as I land." Tian gave everyone a hug, thanking them for coming to see him off today. He pulled his luggage and walked away from them before turning to give them one last look. His mom, dad, Uncle Pitan, and Pete were waving at him from that spot, but his eyes wandered past them to someone who was far, far away. "I'm leaving now, you know." As he showed the passport and the plane ticket to the security, his phone that he didn't turn off rang, stopping him in his track. He shouldn't have been paying attention to it, for he had to board the plane, but he fetched the phone from his trousers. The screen showed a number that wasn't recorded, but he pressed the green button. "Hello?" There was no word from the other end, only static voice as if the signal was bad. Ken frowned, thinking the other end must have misdialed. But before he put the phone down, a voice spoke up. "Yen." That deep, firm voice made his world, the world that had been revolving fine, shatter. Time stopped and things stood still. He froze, dazed, and it took a while before he forced his petrified lips to open. "Captain." Lady Lalita was the first one who spotted the sudden shift in her son. She walked up to him, followed by the others. When they reached the boy, no one dared to speak a word. The fair face was emotionless, but tears were streaming down his face. He pressed the phone tight to his ear, as if waiting for the most critical words in his life. "I wish you good luck." The words were bland, but it was enough to shatter the shield. It was trying hard to keep up. 2 years. It's been 2 years, and that's all you had for me. Tian's voice broke as his chest was bursting with overwhelming emotions. The officer was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke what he'd pushed back at the furthest corner of his heart. I miss you. It was as if the captain was whispering right into his ear. The last bolt had been pushed out, making the young man break into a loud sob as tears poured from his eyes, and all pent-up feelings exploded. The longing, the sadness, and love. Nothing else mattered at this moment. All I ask is that you're still waiting for me. The sobbing young man made heads turn with curiosity, but Tian didn't pay them any mind. He tried to talk through tears as the line had been cut. Cat, Captain, wait for me. Right there. The mother came up to embrace her son, not knowing what to do. She had no idea who was on the call. All she knew that he had affected her son to an unfathomable length. Don't cry, my dear boy. Tell me, what's wrong? Mom, I'm sorry. The abrupt apology made Lady Lalita silent. Her maternal instinct prompted her to change the question. Who's the captain? It seemed like Tian didn't hear her words as his mind zeroed on what he had to do next. He turned to his father and spluttered with the voice of a man who had come to terms with his decision. Dad, I can't leave. General Huruyut stared into his son's swollen eyes that were shone with determination. He let out a long sigh, not knowing if it was from relief or more worries. Go and take care of what you left behind. Then we'll talk. The former general issued an order as if the younger man was his subordinate. You're a man. Once you've made up your mind, no regrets. Understood? The final word that reminded Ken of the tall officer on the hill made him laugh. He wiped his tears from his cheeks and saluted his father the way a soldier's son should. Yes, sir. He turned towards his lady mom, who was still in shock, reaching out to put his hands over hers and squeezing them. I'm sorry I'm letting you down. I love you the most, Mom. Lolita's mouth fell open as she wanted to call her son, who was running away with his luggage, but it was too late. She whipped her husband, who had given the boy permission to go. Can you tell me what's going on, husband? Our son just changed his destination. General Theriot answered slowly, but his voice was firm that his wife's face reddened with anger. You mean back to that hill? No! I'm not letting him go there. I've done all I could to pull him away from that place, but you pushed him away again. I don't care. I'm going to drag him back here. She turned around to go after him, but Colonel Pitan, who had gotten a silent command from his superintendent, lunged in her way. Please come down, my lady. Everyone's looking. I think we'd better talk about this once we get home. Tian will be in Shanghai by that time. Seeing no one moved an inch as she had commanded, Lady Lalita rolled her hands as tears rolled down her face. Why is everyone acting like I'm the bad one here? Her husband stepped in and wound his arms around her shoulders to comfort her. No one is blaming you for anything, my love. Just love him. I only want what's best for my son. She pushed her face against her husband's shoulder, sobbing, but she let him take her back to the van in front of the departure building. General Thirayut opened the door for his wife and went in after her. He smiled and said something that erased her stubbornness. Your son has been given a second chance, a second life. Let him live it how he sees fit. A miracle happens only once in a lifetime, you know. Lady Lolita pressed her lips tight, still distressed. But deep down, she agreed with him. She had been trying to keep things the way they were supposed to be, and obviously her youngest son was just like her. Perhaps it was time to let him go. Alright, I still hope someday he will realize that I only want what's best for him. She couldn't help her sarcastic remark, even if she knew she had to get over it. Colonel Pitan and his son canceled the plane tickets and reclaimed the luggage so they were heading home. On the road, Lady Lolita asked out of the blue about something that had been bothering her. Do you know the man our son was calling Captain? Must be the officer who was assigned to take care of Tian uphill. But when he was on the phone, our son just burst out into tears and threw his education away. At the end of her words, both parents fell into silence. Then it was the lady who reacted first as she screamed at the top of her lungs. Oh my god! I want to pass out! Even the plane to Chiang Rai took just over an hour. His heart had already jumped there long ago. As he gazed at the white clouds at the window, his mind was filled with worries. He was feeling guilty about how he had made up his mind like this. But on the other hand, he was relieved that at least he had completed his bachelor's degree as his parents had wished him to. And when he got there, would the villagers still welcome him with open arms like they once did? It had been over 2 years. Tim leaned his head against the window until the minus temperature outside crept into his skin. He closed his eyes that were swollen from crying to rest his tired mind, hoping no one had filmed how he cried like a little child in public. That would have been a total humiliation if it got uploaded to the internet. And this was all because of you, the giant officer. He had imagined various punishments he could do to the captain, yet he was smiling to himself, contented. In a few hours their paths would merge once again. Chiang Rai Airport was still busy in the late afternoon, with many people waiting for their loved ones. The city boy, who was carrying only his backpack and the wheeled small luggage, walked in the heat to find a rental car to go on the hill. It took him a while to negotiate the price and finally found a truck that would take him there. Why are you going up there, bro? It's quite far away and there's no electricity. The driver asked as he took the car along the winding road on the mountain slope. I'm visiting a friend, he said briskly, but the curious eyes were raking over him from top to toes. Even a countryman could tell that this young man came from an affluent life. How on earth did he have a friend in such a place? I was a volunteer teacher there. As he elaborated further, the driver made a face as if he was looking at a caricature dressed in brand-name costumes walking in the middle of a field. So Tian gave up trying to explain and looked out the window. It was 2 hours that the old truck finally reached a small intersection. An old post of the Department of Highways pointed in the direction towards Papandao. Tian lifted his bag down and paid the fee to the driver. The car soon drove off, leaving the city boy alone in the middle of the road. The narrow dirt route that was cleared up to be a lane that led to the village was still as rough as he'd once remembered. Yet he wasn't frail like he once had been 2 years ago. This time he was able to carry his small trolley and stepped over the bits uphill with ease. The evening in Papandao went on as it always did. Kamal Bingley took off his woven hat and dusted himself off against his pants, sending the dirt up in the air. He had just returned from the tea plantation. A middleman came today said to be there to help the villagers from being cheated and taken advantage of. Since the day the reckless volunteer teacher had been here, the villagers and the children learned how to count, and that had been an immense help. He let out a heavy sigh, feeling nostalgic. It had been ages. He wondered how Tien was doing. Perhaps the younger man had graduated and found a good job. A heavy thud on the ground in the back made him turn around. His slanted eyes widened in shock. Was he dreaming? Rutian! The city boy in front of him looked as good as he had remembered. No, he looked better, healthier, not ashen and scrawny as he had once been. The lean, tall man raised his hand to perform a neat Y, but it was Bingley who abandoned all the formality and grabbed him into a tight hug. How come? Why? What are you doing here? Ian smiled sheepishly, scratching the back of his neck. I had an impulse to come here, so I didn't have time to tell everyone in advance. I was thinking perhaps I could just ask to spend the night at your house. Emma Bingley burst out laughing and slapped the lean arm, smiling. We can stay here forever. The village and I are here to welcome you always. The man from the city far, far away smiled sweetly. This was how it was, the bond of friendship that fulfilled one's heart. But the volunteer teacher's hut is still free. The previous teacher left 2 months ago, and no one's living there at the moment. I'm not here as a teacher. Can I stay there? He asked, not wanting to cause any trouble. But staying at someone else's house would make the host less comfortable. You stay there. The day after tomorrow, I'm going downtown for a meeting. I'll call the foundation to make an arrangement for you. Ian did another Y to thank the older man from the bottom of his heart. Then the village chief walked him to the hut at the edge of the village that was deserted. Since no one knew a new volunteer teacher would come, the tiny hut was left in a desolate condition. Luckily, the mosquito net and the mattress were still intact. Tian looked around the room where he had laid down and listened to the crickets at night as emotions welled up in his chest. Despite not having electricity, no TV and internet, and all the commodities, he had made many precious memories here. Feel free to relax, crew. I'll bring the stuff you need. Bingley shouted from the crumpled bamboo stairs. Tian poked his head out the window, answering the village chief. He started taking care of the sleeping arrangement first by taking the mattress to dust and put it in the air on the balcony where the sun gently touched. He rummaged through his clothes that the maid had put in the small luggage. All he got was 3 to 4 pairs of shirts and pants and a new unopened boxer pack. Oh well, he could wash and rotate them. He didn't want the man who had taught him how to hand wash the clothes to sulk. The city boy chuckled to himself. He longed to run to the operating base right now to meet that special someone, but must hold back for now. He was right here after all. Sooner or later they would see each other again. All of a sudden a chill ran down his spine as something came up at him. How could the captain call him when there was no phone signal on this hill? Or did he go downtown to make the call? It didn't make any sense. Or perhaps he had transferred to another base? Tian shook his head to shed the negative thought. Deep in his heart, he was certain that the other man had kept his words as well, just as they had promised each other. He pulled the backpack to look if he still had anything else left in there, and his eyes landed on the pastel diary. This is one thing I have to finish. Tian took the diary that had turned his life upside down and left the hut. The evening sun from the mountain ridge cast its orange light across the horizon. The cool breeze from the verdant, thick forest brushed gently over him. The stranger was walking through the tea plantations and went further uphill. The rich thickets of trees soothed his anxious heart, washing away the worries he'd imagined the moment earlier. Tian went up the high slope that was the village's namesake, familiar with its path, until he stopped at a vast open space. It was the spot he had once been fooled by a make-up story. The young man chuckled softly to himself. At least he had counted to 999 stars. The lean form looked for a branch he could crouch down to dig the soil near the edge of the cliff. He worked hard until he got a deep pit and flipped the diary to the last page. The missing letters, forever faded into oblivion. He took a pen from his jacket pocket and started writing his own words. Thank you for giving me a new life. All of a sudden, the heart in his left chest thrummed as if to give him a silent reply. Tian gently put the pastel diary into the pit. Sleep tight, Thorfinn. He scooped the soil to cover the diary, not caring if his hands would be dirty. He suddenly saw a big shadow that was shielding the sun at the horizon, and a pair of polished shoes stained with soil appeared before his eyes. He looked at the trousers that covered long, solid legs and stopped at the intense face. The man still wore a deep scowl, looking more ferocious than what Arun Guardian demons.
I knew you'd come.
The deep, low voice sounded almost like a growl, but as the officer saw the stunned expression on the man who was kneeling, his heart softened. Tien, who was holding his breath, jumped. His brown eyes widened as he stared at the tall man in the green khaki military uniform with the unit emblems and insignias on the lapels and the army ribbon on his chest. The only thing that was missing was his military cap. Since he was a little boy, he'd seen many of his father's subordinates in this type of uniform coming in and out of their house all the time, but he'd never seen anyone as formidable and graceful as this man. His poor, poor heart was beating thud, thud, faster and faster, as if it was falling in love again. Pupa, who was running straight from the village up to the hill, sighed heavily, both relieved and frustrated with the younger man's reckless behavior. When he had called Tian, he was at King Mangrai, the great camp in downtown Shanghai, for an important ceremony. Hearing Tian sobbing as if the world was falling apart before the line was cut, he couldn't sit still. He had to excuse himself from the evening reception. It might have upset his superintendents, but he left for the village right away.
Why are you always in trouble?
The magic of the moment vanished as soon as the captain scolded him. The sulking young man glared at Pupa, upset. I thought you would be happy to see me.
I'm happy, but you shouldn't ruin your life like this.
This is a future I've chosen for myself. I chose to come back to you. Even if he was the target of the angry yell, Pupa didn't react. He heard nothing but Yen's words that shot right through his heart. His eyes softened as he looked at the younger man, overwhelmed.
I'll always wait for you, no matter how long it takes.
Pupa's words were like a cooling breeze that cooled him down. Tian smiled and shook his head. But I can't wait. He would not do that once again, that long waiting without any hope. The officer inhaled deeply. He looked at the darkening sky as the sun was setting.
I guess you found the last star.
It was as if his past failed attempt was brought up to remind him how weak he was, and his expression became melancholic. If he had, he wouldn't have to wait this long. As he was deep in his pensive thought, the man who was looking up at the star spoke in a gentle voice.
But I found it.
Pupa looked away from the sky and removed an insignia on his shoulder. He put a five-pointed star under a glistening gold crown on Tien's soiled hand and stepped closer to whisper at the tip of the boy's ear.
Now you can make a wish.
The weight of the star was so heavy that Tien was trembling. Tears welled up in his eyes and slowly ran down his face. I wish that we will never be apart again.
We will never be apart, ever again.
The officer repeated the wish, ready to make their wish come true. The smile on the handsome face was so gentle it hurt. Tien threw himself at the officer and held him tight. The wait was over. He rested his head on a thick shoulder that bore no rank as it had already been given away. What if I went to the US and never came back? Would you really be waiting for me? Pupa wound his arms around his beloved.
No matter how long it takes.
Have you ever thought of chasing after me? The petulant words rendered the officer speechless. The intense eyes dropped to hide his sadness.
Ian, we can't always make things happen as fast as we want them to, but I've tried my best.
Shorten the distance between us.
Tried your best?
He always heard that from Dr. Nam when he called. He had always wondered what it meant. Or maybe the five-pointed star's sharpness in his hands stunned him. He remembered when he was in high school how his older brother, who had been promoted to the rank of major, complained how he broke his back to enroll in the Command and General Staff College. There, he could further his education and build his career. The college was in Bangkok. Knowing he was loved, Tian's heart swelled at the realization. He pushed his face against the officer's solid neck and cried until the green khaki lapels became wet with the boy's happy tears. He loved the scent of sunshine on this man, and every time they were close, he always felt safe and secure. Don't ever let me go again, no matter what. Pupa planted a possessive kiss on one smooth temple, tightening his arms around his beloved as an answer. When the star had fallen into the arms of the land beneath, how could he ever let him go? End of chapter 14.